Motion in your step.
Motivation in your heart.
Hello, and welcome to today's Motion and Motivation podcast.
We've put together a study guide for everyone. If you need it, you can grab it from the video description.
Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Into this whole idea of creativity. We're going to be checking out Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, a book just packed with, insights into how inspiration works and how all of us, how we can unlock that potential. Are you ready for some, I guess you could say, creative magic?
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to dive into Gilbert's ideas.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly are we even talking about when we say creativity?
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Well, Gilbert, she defines it as, and quoting here, the relationship between a human being and the mysteries of inspiration. And get this, she doesn't limit it, just to artists, right? It's for all.
Exactly. It's this universal human experience, something we all share.
We're all born with it. It's like built in, this ability to connect with inspiration, bring something new, something that wasn't there before into the world. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Absolutely.
And speaking of inspiring figures, she introduces us to this poet, Jack Gilbert. He chose a secluded life in Greece, imagine that, over fame and fortune. He valued that richness of experience, you know what I mean? More than awards, more than external recognition.
Yeah, it's like he understood that a truly fulfilling life is a creative life.
And he encouraged his students to be brave, to really go for it with their creative potential.
Embrace it fully.
Totally. And it really makes you think. Sometimes stepping off the beaten path, well, maybe that leads to even greater creative fulfillment.
It's like you're stepping into the unknown.
Yeah.
Where the real magic happens.
Yeah, exactly. And Elizabeth herself, she wasn't always this fearless explorer of creativity, right? She tells this story about her childhood fear, and I have to admit, it reminded me of my own experiences growing up. Her mom, instead of trying to protect her from fear, had this incredible way of dealing with it.
Oh, she didn't coddle her. She was like, nope, we're going to face this head on.
Exactly. It was like a face your fears boot camp.
Exactly.
The best way to overcome it is to walk right through it. And what's really fascinating is that she came to this realization that fear is both universal, like everybody experiences it, and also kind of boring.
Yeah, it's that same voice in our heads telling us to play it safe, to stay small.
Right, that nagging voice.
Yeah.
Telling us to stop. But instead of fighting it, she learned to make space for it.
To acknowledge it, but not let it control her.
To allow it to exist, but not dictate her actions.
Such a powerful shift.
And that's where I think there's a real takeaway for all of us on our own creative journeys. Maybe instead of letting fear paralyze us, we can learn to, coexist with it. To just be okay with it being there.
Yeah.
And then create anyway.
It's like you're giving yourself permission to create despite the fear.
Permission to be brave.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ready for the mind-bending part?
I think so.
All right, so Gilbert, she presents this incredible concept of, get this, ideas as living entities, like energetic beings searching for human collaborators.
Almost like they're these little bundles of energy, these sparks of creativity floating around, just waiting for the right person to come along.
So they're not just passive things waiting to be discovered. They're active, looking for someone, looking for us to help them be born. That is wild.
Right, and she even says they try to get our attention, sending us signals, whispers of inspiration.
Okay, I'm totally intrigued. So how do we get better at catching those signals? What's the secret?
Well, being open and receptive is a big part of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Gilbert suggests we're often so consumed with our own anxieties and just distractions, right? All the noise of daily life.
Yeah, I get that.
We miss those subtle cues, those little nudges from the universe. It's like we're too busy staring at our phones to notice the muse waving at us from across the street.
That's a great analogy. We are glued to our phones, that's for sure. Yeah. But what if we keep ignoring those nudges? Do they just give up on us?
Well, yeah, in a way. They're looking for a partner, someone who's willing to collaborate, to nurture that idea, champion it.
So they're looking for that spark, that connection.
Yeah. And if we're not receptive, they'll move on to someone who is.
Wow, they really are like living beings, aren't they? Searching for that perfect match.
They are. They have a life of their own, and they're seeking the right conditions to flourish.
That's a powerful image. So, when we are open, when we quiet our minds, that's when the magic can happen.
Exactly. When we create space for inspiration, that's when it can flow.
Like we're entering into a contract, right? We commit to bringing this idea to life, and the idea commits to working with us. But but she also mentions this idea of the contract of suffering, which, let's be honest, is a pretty popular contract, right?
Mm.
Especially in the creative world.
Oh, absolutely. The idea that great art requires immense personal sacrifice,
Hmm?
that you have to suffer for your craft.
Right, like wearing your struggles as a badge of honor, proof that you're a real artist.
But Gilbert challenges that notion,
She argues there's another way, a more, well, joyful approach.
a more collaborative approach, where we can find fulfillment and even fun in the creative process without succumbing to self-destruction or martyrdom.
Sign me up for that contract. But to really illustrate how these ideas have a life of their own, she tells this story about Evelyn of the Amazon, her initial idea for a novel.
It was this captivating story, set in 1960s Brazil
Mhm.
about this middle-aged woman who gets caught up in this jungle mystery. She was so captivated by the idea that she was even learning Portuguese to really immerse herself in it.
She was all in. But then, well, life happened. Her boyfriend, Felipe, he was having these immigration issues, and she had to put the project on hold for like over a year. I mean, it happens to all of us, right? Life throws a curveball, and those creative projects get put on the back burner.
It's so easy to lose momentum when life gets in the way.
So relatable. But when she finally came back to the novel, that spark, it was gone. The inspiration had vanished. It was like the idea itself, it had moved on, like it was searching for a more available collaborator.
Out of sight, out of mind. It happens with ideas too.
And this is where the story gets really mind-blowing. She runs into her friend Ann Patchett, another writer.
And Anne tells her that she has this almost identical novel idea.
I mean, same plot, same characters, even the same setting. The odds of that are just astronomical.
Like the idea was out there floating around and found a new home.
Right. I mean, it really reinforces this idea that ideas have their own energy, their own agency. They're seeking that perfect collaborator.
Like they're saying, hey, over here, I'm ready to be born.
And then it's so funny. She talks about how after Eat, Pray, Love came out, she was just inundated with people, all these people claiming she stole their ideas.
It's like we get so attached to them, our ideas, like they belong solely to us.
But as Gilbert suggests,
Yeah.
maybe she just, she stumbled upon an unattended idea, and she gave it that attention, that nurturing it needed to come to life.
At least she was the gardener who helped it bloom.
Exactly. It makes you think about all those fleeting thoughts, those little sparks of inspiration we all have. What if we paid more attention to them, gave them space to grow? Who knows what might happen?
We may be surprised by where they lead us.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of recognizing potential, she mentions another idea she had for a nonfiction book about Newark, New Jersey. She wanted to call it Brick City, but she never really pursued it.
And then guess what? The Sundance Channel ends up producing a documentary with the same title, the same theme. Like the idea was out there, just waiting for someone to pick it up and run with it.
So it's like those little sparks, those fleeting thoughts, those what ifs. Maybe they hold more weight than we realize.
Maybe they're little seeds waiting to be planted.
And maybe, just maybe, the key is being open to them, exploring them, and seeing where they might lead, even if it seems a little unconventional.
Even if it takes us outside our comfort zones.
Exactly. Now, before we move on, I have to share this amazing anecdote about the poet Ruth Stone. She actually described receiving poems like fully formed,
Oh, wow.
like downloaded from the universe. Have you ever had moments like that where inspiration just hits you like a bolt of lightning and the words just flow effortlessly?
Oh, absolutely. Those moments are pure magic.
She described it as like chasing poems across fields, capturing them as they just poured through her. What a beautiful image, right? Being a conduit for that creative energy.
It's like you're a vessel and the inspiration is flowing through you.
It's both inspiring and a little intimidating to think we could be vessels for that kind of power. But let's be real, most of our creative lives aren't always that mystical. Gilbert, she acknowledges that a lot of her writing life is about showing up, putting in the work, honoring that dedication to the craft.
Absolutely. It's about embracing the discipline, the consistency.
Right, creating that structure, that foundation for those moments of magic to emerge.
It's like you're creating the fertile ground where those seeds of inspiration can take root.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And then when those moments of flow do arrive, she describes them as gifts, those bursts of creative energy where the words seem to write themselves. But the key, as she emphasizes, is to keep showing up, keep honing our craft. whether the muse decides to show up or not.
It's about finding that balance, the
Yeah.
discipline and the surrender.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it, like a dance, right?
Exactly. A dance between structure and spontaneity.
Between the dedication to the craft and the willingness to just let go, let that creative energy flow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gilbert emphasizes this idea of reckless abandon in creation. And she uses Harper Lee as an example. Lee, the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, well, she only published one major novel in her lifetime.
And when that lost manuscript, the novel she wrote before To Kill a Mockingbird, was discovered, it raised all these questions about the creative potential that might have been lost, not just for the world, but for Lee herself.
It makes you think about those creative impulses we might be holding back, those stories inside of us, just yearning to be told. Maybe it's a reminder to just keep creating, keep sharing our work, regardless of that fear of judgment or the pressure to achieve a certain level of success.
To create for the sheer joy of it.
Exactly. And she extends this encouragement to other writers who, for different reasons, well, they fell silent, like Ralph Ellison and F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
It's like she's urging us to keep writing, to keep filling those pages, even if it's just, as she puts it, blah, blah, blah. Just keep going.
Silence those inner critics.
Release the need to be perfect.
Embrace the messy, imperfect process of creation.
Exactly. And you know what? I think that message, it resonates beyond just writing. It applies to any creative pursuit, whether it's painting, dancing, composing music, even building a business. It's about finding that creative spark within us and letting it ignite, regardless of the form it takes.
Absolutely.
So to all you aspiring creators out there, go forth and create. Embrace the messiness, the joy, and the freedom of expressing yourself authentically. And remember, sometimes the most brilliant ideas are just waiting for you to say yes and bring them into the world.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2, where we'll dive deeper into Gilbert's insights on cultivating that creative spark, embracing the unexpected, and navigating the ups and downs of the creative journey. Stay tuned for more Big Magic.
Welcome back. I'm still thinking about all those ideas, just, swirling around out there, seeking collaborators. It's an interesting concept that really makes you pay attention to those fleeting thoughts, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does. It's like suddenly you're more aware of all these creative possibilities floating around.
Exactly. And Gilbert, she goes on to explore this idea of art being useless.
Yeah, that's a fascinating perspective.
Useless, but art, it enriches our lives in so many ways, right? How can it be useless?
Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? She's arguing that it's this very uselessness, the fact that it's not tied to a specific purpose or outcome, that makes art so compelling.
So it's not about solving problems. It's not about achieving something specific. It's more about the pure joy of creating the process itself.
Exactly. It frees us from those constraints of practicality, of purpose. We can just create for the pure joy of it.
I can see how that could be incredibly liberating.
Oh, absolutely. It's like giving ourselves permission to play, to experiment.
To be more childlike in our approach to creativity. Really.
Exactly. Without worrying about the end result, without that pressure to be perfect.
And speaking of different levels of creative expression, Gilbert, she introduces this idea of high-stakes creativity versus low-stakes creativity.
Yeah, and it's an important distinction because in some parts of the world, creative expression, it carries real weight, real risk.
Right, like in places where freedom of expression is limited or oppressed.
Think about artists and writers who challenge societal norms or political regimes. Their work, it can have real-world consequences.
Wow, that's a powerful reminder that the freedom to create, it's a privilege. Not everyone has that.
Absolutely.
It makes you really appreciate the freedom we have to express ourselves without fear of censorship or persecution.
Exactly. And for those of us fortunate enough to live in societies that value creative freedom, Gilbert, she encourages us to really embrace this low-stakes environment where we can experiment, we can make mistakes, and we can explore our creative impulses without the fear of, life-altering consequences.
Like we have this amazing opportunity to play, to just try things out, to see what happens without that fear of failure holding us back.
Exactly. It's like we have this sandbox to play in, to build whatever we want.
I love that analogy. And speaking of embracing playfulness, Gilbert, she brings up Tom Waits, the musician, and his perspective on inspiration.
Oh, Tom Waits. He has such a unique way of looking at things.
He really does. And he has this wonderful, quirky way of describing how song ideas come to him. He compares them to dreams, potatoes, gum stuck under a table, wild birds, all these random and unexpected sources of inspiration.
Like he sees inspiration lurking everywhere, just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And it makes me think about how often we might be overlooking those everyday moments of inspiration, those fleeting thoughts or observations that could spark something creative.
What if we started paying more attention, looking at the world through the eyes of an artist, a musician, a writer?
Right. We might be surprised by what we find.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that childlike sense of wonder and curiosity.
And Waits, he also talks about how his approach to lost songs has evolved over time. Initially, he'd frantically search for those elusive melodies, those fragments of inspiration that had seemingly vanished. But now he has this more relaxed
He
approach.
trusts that if a song is meant to be born, it will find its way back to him.
It's like he's surrendering to that ebb and flow of the creative process.
Exactly. And he also talks about finding inspiration in observing his children and their uninhibited approach to making music.
It's like kids, they haven't learned to be self-conscious yet, right? They just create for the pure joy of it.
They haven't learned to censor themselves, to edit themselves. They just let it flow.
And through watching his children, Waits, he had this amazing realization that songwriting is essentially like, and I'm quoting here, making jewelry for the inside of other people's minds.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests that we're taking these abstract ideas, these emotions, these sounds, and we're crafting them into something beautiful, something evocative, something that can resonate deep within another person.
It's about connection, isn't it?
It really is. It's about using our creativity to reach out and touch another soul. And while Tom Waits is busy crafting intracranial jewelry, we have Elizabeth Gilbert diligently sticking to her writing routine, even amidst the chaos of her 20s.
She really emphasizes the importance of showing up, of honoring that commitment to her craft, even when she didn't feel particularly inspired.
That's where the discipline comes in, right? It's about creating those habits and rituals that support our creative endeavors.
It's like making a date with your muse, whether she shows up or not.
And she even used a kitchen timer to keep herself on track. I love that. It's like, okay, Gilbert, time to write.
It's a reminder that creativity often needs that structure, that dedication.
Right. It's not always about waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about creating the conditions for inspiration to emerge. And she even quotes John Updike, who said that some of the best novels were written in an hour a day.
It's about carving out that time, even if it's just a little bit each day.
And showing up consistently. And you know what? I find that so reassuring. It means we don't need like vast stretches of uninterrupted time to be creative.
We can find those pockets of time, those stolen moments, and weave them into something beautiful.
Exactly. Okay, and this next story, it's so inspiring. It's about Winifred, that vibrant 90-year-old writer Elizabeth met.
The Bohemian Hurricane. What an amazing woman.
Oh, she sounds incredible. So she didn't start writing until later in life, which proves that it's never too late to embrace those creative passions.
It really challenges that notion that we have to have it all figured out by a certain age.
Right. It's never too late to start to learn to create.
Yeah.
And on a more practical note, Gilbert, she offers some advice for those of us who are balancing, creative dreams with the demands of everyday life.
She acknowledges that most of us can't just, drop everything and pursue our passions full time.
Right. We still have to pay the bills.
But she encourages us to carve out that time, to nurture those dreams, to find ways to make it work.
She even uses examples of successful authors like Toni Morrison, J.K. Rowling, and Anne Patchett, all of whom had day jobs while they were writing their masterpieces.
It's about finding that balance.
It's about making space for creativity, even amid the busyness of life. And even if we never achieve fame or fortune, there's still so much value in the act of creating itself. And I think that's beautifully illustrated in the story about that man in India who decorated his ox.
Oh yeah, the one with the pink and turquoise horns. I love that story.
It's such a simple story, but it's so profound. It's this human impulse to embellish, to add beauty and whimsy to the world around us.
Like he was saying, why not?
Exactly. And it connects to this idea that Gilbert calls finding our couch eating activity.
Couch eating activity?
I know, right? What does that even mean?
Well, she's talking about discovering something that absorbs us completely, something that pulls us away from, from our routines and allows us to lose ourselves in that flow of creativity.
It's like finding that activity that makes time disappear.
Yeah, where you get so lost in the moment that you forget about everything else.
And while she acknowledges that this can take many forms, prayer, community service, even sex, there's something uniquely fulfilling about creative living.
About making something new, about expressing ourselves.
It's about bringing something beautiful or meaningful into the world. And, she offers this really reassuring perspective. She reminds us that most people are so preoccupied with themselves that they're not really paying that much attention to what we're creating.
It's so liberating, isn't it? Knowing that we can create without that constant weight of judgment or the pressure to meet external expectations.
We can just create for ourselves. And speaking of letting go of perfection, remember her mother's golden rule: done is better than good.
Ah, Carol Gilbert's wisdom.
Such a great reminder to just focus on completion. Get our work out there, even if it's not perfect.
It's about embracing the imperfect, progress over perfection.
And she even connects it to General George Patton's quote about executing a good plan now being better than a perfect plan later.
It's about taking action, making things happen.
Not letting that pursuit of perfection just paralyze us.
Exactly. And this is especially important when we're navigating the unpredictable nature of creative life.
Because even with talent, dedication, hard work, success it's not guaranteed.
The creative path it's full of twists and turns, unexpected detours.
It's like we're embarking on an adventure without a map, knowing that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. And Gilbert, she prepares us for this reality, acknowledging the potential for rejection, for setbacks, even for criticism.
She reminds us that creativity is a vulnerable act.
Yeah.
And putting our work out there, well, it means opening ourselves up to the possibility of judgment.
Right, we're putting our hearts out there.
Right.
But she also emphasizes the importance of perseverance, of finding that inner drive that keeps us going even when external validation is lacking.
It's about cultivating that resilience, that unwavering belief in our creative vision.
Exactly. And speaking of unexpected encounters, she shares this fascinating story about an elk.
Oh, yes, the unexpected visitor.
So she was camping with friends, and this massive elk, it just suddenly appeared, snorting and pawing the ground. It was a startling reminder of the wildness and unpredictability of nature.
And she uses this encounter as a metaphor for connecting with those gatekeepers of the creative world, the editors, the agents, the publishers who often hold the keys to our creative dreams.
Right. And those figures, they can seem so intimidating, so powerful, so difficult to reach.
But she emphasizes their humanness, reminding us that they're just people.
With their own tastes, their own preferences, their own moments of vulnerability.
It's like she's saying, don't put them on a pedestal. They're just navigating their own creative journeys, just like us.
And she encourages us to approach those connections with persistence, with good cheer, and with a bit of that elk-like boldness.
To put ourselves out there, to take those creative leaps.
And on that note of unexpected connections, we'll dive into part 3, where we explore the power of quitting, the beauty of imperfection, and the importance of embracing our unique creative voice. Stay tuned for more Big Magic. Welcome back to our final deep dive into Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. It's been quite a journey, exploring the nature of inspiration, the importance of showing up consistently, and those unexpected ways creativity kind of weaves its way into our lives.
And as we wrap up this exploration, we're going to delve into a concept that might seem a little counterintuitive, I guess you could say, the power of quitting.
Quitting! But haven't we been talking about perseverance and dedication all this time? How does quitting fit into that equation?
Right. Well, it's not about giving up entirely. Remember that advice Richard Ford gave to that aspiring writer? He told him to quit.
Yeah. That really threw me off when we talked about it earlier. It seemed so contrary to everything we've been discussing.
Right, exactly. But there's a twist. Ford's advice wasn't about, abandoning your passion altogether. It was more about gaining perspective, like stepping away for a while to see if anything else could fill that creative void.
So it's like a test of true passion. If you walk away and nothing else brings you that same sense of fulfillment, well then, you're on the right path.
Exactly. It's like he was saying, after trying other things, you find that nothing else calls to you with that same intensity, then you have no choice but to persevere.
It's about it's about recognizing those pursuits that truly resonate with your soul.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of that question Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer asks her students,
Yeah.
does it love you back?
Yes. Such a beautiful question and so profound. She's talking about the relationship we have with nature, encouraging her students to really assess, if it feels reciprocal, if they sense that loving connection.
And it's a question that could be applied to any passionate pursuit, right? Whether it's writing, painting, building a business, even our relationships with other people. We can ask ourselves, does it love me back?
Exactly. Does it bring you joy, fulfillment, a sense of purpose, or does it feel, I don't know, draining, depleting, one-sided?
That's a really powerful question to ask. And Gilbert suggests we apply that same question to our creative endeavors.
Yeah.
So it's not just about what we get out of it. It's also about how it makes us feel.
hmm
And that brings us to this crucial distinction between the martyr and the trickster.
Ah, yes, the martyr and the trickster. Such fascinating archetypes in the creative realm. The martyr, they often romanticize the struggle, believing that suffering is an inherent part of the creative process. They might sacrifice their well-being, their relationships, even their sanity, all for the sake of their art.
It's like that classic image of the tortured artist
Yeah.
holed up in their studio, fueled by angst and caffeine.
Yeah. Exactly. And they might even wear their struggles as a badge of honor, like it's proof of their artistic authenticity.
I suffered for my art.
Look how much I've sacrificed.
Right. But the trickster, on the other hand, they approach creativity with a sense of lightness, playfulness, a twinkle in their eye.
They're the rebels, the rule breakers. They're having fun with it.
Yeah, they don't take themselves too seriously. And Gilbert, she argues that the trickster approach is not only more enjoyable, but it's more sustainable in the long run. It's about, working smarter, not harder.
Infusing the creative process with delight, with adventure.
I like that. And speaking of tricksters, she shares this wonderful story about Brene Brown and her unique approach to writing.
Oh, Brene Brown, she's a great example of this. Despite being a gifted storyteller, she actually struggled with the traditional act of writing.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of being stuck, right? The words just, they don't flow as easily as we'd like.
Exactly, but Brene, she found this brilliant solution that really embodies that trickster spirit. She gathered her friends and she told them her stories, had them take detailed notes, and then she transcribed those notes, captured the essence of her natural speaking voice.
That is so clever. She turned her writing process into this collaborative, joyful experience. And the result was a book that felt authentic, engaging, full of Brené's unique voice and personality.
It's such a great example of how embracing that trickster energy can lead to innovative solutions.
It's about finding those unconventional approaches, those playful strategies that work for us as individuals. And I think it connects to this larger theme of shifting our focus from the outcome to the process.
Right, exactly. Gilbert, she suggests that the time we spend creating, that's what's sacred, regardless of the external results.
So it's not about, achieving fame or fortune or even critical acclaim. It's about the transformation that happens within us
Mhm.
as we engage with our creative impulses.
It's about the expansion of our imagination.
It's about recognizing that the journey itself is the reward.
Absolutely. And she challenges us to let go of that possessive language we often use around our creative work, the tendency to call it my baby or to cling to it with a sense of ownership.
Right, like it's this precious thing that we have to protect at all costs.
But it's about acknowledging that inspiration plays a role, that we're not solely responsible for that creative spark.
Like we're co-creating with something larger than ourselves.
Tapping into that universal stream of creativity.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And she also emphasizes the importance of curiosity as a driving force in our creative lives.
Mhm.
That what if spirit, that desire to explore, to experiment, to see where those creative impulses lead us.
She shares an example of herself researching the origins of plants in her garden.
Oh, wow.
A simple act of curiosity that led her to all these fascinating historical connections, a deeper understanding of her surroundings.
That's amazing. It's like embarking on a treasure hunt.
Exactly. And she
Yeah.
celebrates creators who embody this insatiable curiosity. People like Joyce Carol Oates, James Franco, Bruce Springsteen.
Wow, quite a range.
Right. They're constantly exploring, experimenting, pushing boundaries.
They're not afraid to try new things, to step outside their comfort zones.
And to follow their curiosity wherever it might lead.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive, Gilbert, she leaves us with this powerful message about the interplay between ego and creativity.
The ego, while it's necessary for, for health's definition, it can sometimes become inflated, leading to self-doubt, fear of judgment, and a reluctance to share our work.
Right. It's like that inner critic that whispers, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
What will people think?
Exactly. And to illustrate this point, she tells this delightful story about little brother, this aspiring painter who showed up at this fancy masquerade ball in a homemade lobster costume.
Oh, I love that story.
He embraced his unique expression, his quirky sense of style, and he had a blast. He didn't let the fear of judgment hold him back, and in doing so, he created this memorable experience for himself and everyone around him.
That's such a great reminder that sometimes the most authentic, the most joyful creative expressions, they come from embracing our individuality.
Yeah.
Our quirks, even our perceived flaws.
And who knows, you might even end up dancing with royalty.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we reflect on Richard Ford's advice, it's not about quitting entirely. It's about quitting unless that creative passion, unless it burns so brightly within you that you have no choice but to persevere.
It's about aligning ourselves with those pursuits that feel like a true calling.
Like a love affair with the creative process itself.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful paradox to end on. It's a call to action, a reminder to assess our own creative motivations and to embrace the journey with courage, with curiosity, and with a healthy dose of that trickster spirit.
And we hope this deep dive into Elizabeth Gilbert's big magic has sparked your own creative fire.
Remember, the journey of creative living, it's ongoing. It's filled with twists and turns, moments of magic, moments of maybe even moments of frustration, and the deep satisfaction of pursuing what you love.
So go forth, embrace your creativity, and remember, as Gilbert says, the universe buries strange jewels deep within us all and then stands back to see if we can find them.
Happy creating, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. That way you won't miss any of our updates. Also, if you think this video could help others, please share it with them. Thanks for watching and for your support.